Hello and welcome to Racing News 365 answers your fan questions from last weekend's Singapore Grand Prix. From Racing News 365, my name is Nick Golding, and as always, I cannot answer your questions alone. So joining me from Racing News 365 is solely 2023 Young Journalist of the Year, Sam absolutely Coop. Solely Sam SS, because there is no lead editor Ian Parks. He is currently travelling back from Singapore, so if you want your weekly dose of Ian Parks, be sure to check out Monday's podcast, which he recorded still at the Marina Bay circuits. It was a pretty unique podcast recording, Sam, it's got to be said.
It was. It's always kind of a little bit kind of disconcerting when we have to record in an evening. Yes. And also, I totally missed the whole conversation where we had agreed that it was going to be on Sunday evening. So when you out of nowhere were like, right, podcast at kind of whatever time, I was like, what? Like, I just hadn't mentally kind of prepared. But yeah, I mean, less about the podcast recording time, and I guess more about the actual race. It was an interesting start to the race. Lots of drama. It felt like all the talking points derived from those first three corners, really, let's face it. And then after that was it was fine. Wasn't what we would expect from a Singapore Grand Prix. You usually get, at least a little bit of chaos after that point. It was not really until the end when you had Fernando Alonso absolutely losing his stuff at Lewis Hamilton that you had any more drama, really. But yeah, how are you?
I'm okay. As you pointed out. So for those who don't know, we record our podcasts normally on a Monday and then follow it by the fan questions video, which we're recording now. So for us, we're recording this on Monday. The podcast Sam and I recorded on Sunday evening, which was very early Monday morning for Ian. I hope that makes some sense. And yeah, your point about Singapore, ultimately, everybody was just waiting for a safety car, or should I say a safety car that ultimately just never came. But nevertheless, it was still an interesting race, which has given us some great questions from fans. So once again, to those who sent in questions, thank you very much. As always, we have selected 5 at random. And the first one, doesn't change because it is Singapore. And it comes from Jens. Apologies to anybody if I mispronounce your name. How much do the drivers drink during a Grand Prix like this in Singapore? And of course, Singapore is one of the more difficult races for the drivers given the heat and the humidity. And some interesting facts about Singapore in that during the Grand Prix, the drivers tend to lose, or sweat, should I say, about 3 litres. That's around 3 kilos of body weight. Actually, they're only allowed to drink in their bottles. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Their drink bottles are actually 1.5 litres. So in theory, whilst they're going to be sweating 3 litres, the most they can drink is 1.5. However, as we know, some drivers tend to not drink. Some drivers tend to drink all their bottle. It's very much down to personal preference. And it's definitely a race I would not like to do in the cockpit of a Formula One car, unless you want to lose weight, Sam.
Oh, I mean, yeah, you can go full bin bag, the whole kind of, the whole 9 yards. I mean, actually, there are worse ideas. Maybe I'll see if I can hire an F1 car in Singapore for a couple of hours at some point. But you also heard, if you watched the race, Lando Norris be told by Will Joseph, his race engineer, to drink, reminding him to drink. And Martin Brundle kind of aptly pointed out on Sky commentary that it's very easy to forget when you're so focused. And obviously in Singapore at the Marina Bay street circuit, the walls are so close. It's such a high concentration, high attrition race for those guys. So it's very easy to forget to drink. And also Lando Norris is one of those drivers who has in the past is that he doesn't usually really like to drink during a race. But yeah, a special occasion in Singapore because of how oppressively humid it is.
It is seriously difficult. That's partly why as well people might have noticed, for those who watched qualifying and the race, why the top 3 Parc Fermé interviews were done together as a kind of group thing rather than individually. It was more a case so the drivers could quickly get some fluids back into them, because you saw them all straight away sit on the floor, downing, gulping water as quickly as they could, something you don't normally see. So yeah, very interesting question, because not all races are like Singapore. The next question comes from Stephanie. Who do you think will finish second, third and fourth in the constructors standing? Sam, you can give your opinion first. We can quickly point out Mercedes are in second on 325 points, Ferrari in third on 298, and Red Bull in fourth on 290.
Okay, so I think second is now locked pretty much. I think Mercedes will have enough. George Russell and to a lesser extent Kimi Antonelli will be consistent enough point scoring wise to see Mercedes over the line ahead of their two rivals, Ferrari and Red Bull in this case. I do think we will have a swap when it comes to third, though. I think Red Bull will edge Ferrari out. I don't think they'll have enough on the basis of you're going to need a lot more from Yuki. There's obviously the deficit there that they're already kind of trying to claw back over the final 6 rounds. Max Verstappen, you would expect will outscore George, but I don't think it'll be enough to kind of take them over that ledge and into second. So I think they'll be third. Ferrari's the real kind of talking point here. And the real contrast between them and Red Bull. Red Bull have made improvements. They've delivered upgrades. They're still delivering upgrades, as we saw in Singapore with the new front wing. And they've made those work. There's been real strides taken in the last few weeks. Ferrari haven't done that, and they haven't been able to understand that, the SF25. And in fact, they almost seem increasingly confused by it. Charles Leclerc particularly is kind of bewildered by it, doesn't really understand when it's quick, when it's not, and they've just slipped back. There's nothing that they've shown in the last few weeks that gives you any real confidence that they are going to be able to score consistent enough points and finish high enough in the top 10 to see themselves through in third place. I think second is completely out of the question almost now for them. Can they hold on to third? I think not, but it will be close between them and Red Bull. So yeah, I think Ferrari will be fourth.
Okay, I agree with you on Ferrari completely, and actually I believe that Ferrari end up finishing quite a distant fourth. The way things are going, not really picking up that big points. I'm going to go different though, because I think it's going to be Red Bull second, Mercedes third. Mercedes, brilliant in Singapore, don't get me wrong, with Kimi in fifth and George winning the race. But in hot and humid conditions, Mercedes normally struggle. They were amazing, but crucially, they don't understand why. Toto Wolff kind of joked to media afterwards, kind of asking, well, do you know why kind of thing? They're going to need to spend some time to find out how they performed the way they did, particularly we've got hot races coming up, like in Texas, like in Mexico City, Losail, Qatar, obviously, Abu Dhabi. There are further hot races coming this season. For me, though, the fact that Max has had 2 wins and a second place finish in the last 3 races, I've just got a feeling that he's going to win a few more this year. And if he's as well going to be keeping himself in the driver's title fight, he's going to have to be finishing consistently on the top 2 steps of the podium. And yes, Yuki isn't scoring big points. Kimi, to his credit, has started to score more consistent points in the top 6, which is brilliant for him and his confidence. I've just got a feeling that Max on his own can overhaul Mercedes. And 27 points, it can be done, I believe so. So yeah, for me, Red Bull second, Mercedes third, Ferrari in fourth. Next question comes from Craig. Do you think we will see the McLaren drivers make contact again this season? Of course, that is referring to the lap 1, turn 3 incident, which we discussed in some detail in Monday's podcast. So be sure to go and check that out, where Lando Norris made contact with Oscar Piastri. Sam, your thoughts? Are we going to see it happen again?
Yes. Next question.
Next question.
No, to expand and elaborate on that, as it comes down to the wire, the Papaya rules is going to be completely put to one side, or increasingly put to one side. You could argue that the Singapore Grand Prix in some ways was the death of Papaya rules, in some ways because of that contact on the first lap, and secondly, because the Constructors Championship was sealed for McLaren. There's nothing else for them to play for other than Lando and Oscar and their 2 respective camps within the team fighting for the Drivers' Championship now. So those twin factors basically mean it's time for the gloves to come off. And it's, you're going to see probably increasingly aggressive racing from the 2 of them. You saw that from Lando on the first lap. That caught Oscar by surprise. He was not expecting that level of aggression, really, from Lando. And so you can expect Oscar will return in kind. That in itself will naturally breed more opportunities for them to collide. Whether or not they'll keep it in bounds, we don't know. But also that factored into an increasingly tight title fight as you get down to the wire potentially. If you get to the final round in Abu Dhabi, say, and they are first and second, and the person in second needs to overtake the person in first to win the title, they're going to make a move. They have to make a move. You're not going to go, well, I don't want to, retire from this race or whatever. You go for broke. You absolutely make that move. And the guy in who's in first, who's ahead, who's currently winning the title as things stand, he's not going to let the position up. So that's, again, the kind of environment, the kind of scenario where you are naturally increasing the likelihood of contact between the two of them. They'll try and keep it clean. Of course they will. The last thing you want is contact with your teammate. But there is a very good opportunity. There's a very good chance that it will happen again. And that's the kind of scenario or situation that you can expect it.
I agree. And I mean, I think it's almost inevitable it's going to happen again. And with the Constructors title won, the gloves are off. Oscar is going to remember what happened in Singapore now. Almost a bit like I made this point actually in qualifying that Max Verstappen made the comment to Lando of, I remember that, noted in regard to what happened at the end of Q3. I think it's going to be the exact same for Oscar with Lando. He's going to remember now what Lando did to him at turn 3. And he now knows as well that McLaren in the future are quite clearly going to let that kind of thing happen. The gloves are off now. There's no Constructors title left to be won. They've done that. It's all about now driver against driver, man against man. Which one's going to come out on top and claim a maiden world title? Or will they both, collide with each other so many times that Max Verstappen comes through and claims a record equaling 5th driver's title? Weirder things have happened.
That's the danger.
That is the danger. And this is why, for me, I think Max, yes, he keeps ruling himself out, but I think that's mind games. I really believe Max, yes, 63 points adrift, is a much bigger threat than a lot of people are giving credit for. I've just got a weird feeling in the back of my mind that we're going to be seeing Max being world champion this year. Call me crazy, I don't mind. Let us know in the comments if you think we're going to see McLaren contact again this season. We both think so. The next question comes from Usama. Could you guys explain why Lewis Hamilton got his penalty despite having a broken car? Of course, this is in reference to Lewis Hamilton receiving a post-race 5-second time penalty for exceeding track limits so many times in the closing laps. He had brake failure. He had no brakes, quite simply. Dropped him from 7th to 8th behind Fernando Alonso. Sam, can you please explain why Lewis was penalised despite having this issue?
Yes, because it's a very good question, because it's, in some ways, it seems quite harsh. He's battling this really difficult problem in the last stage of the race. It was actually it's the last thing you want, really.
Yes, don't try this on the real roads, guys.
Do not disengage your brake.
Yeah, no. Do not try and discover what it feels like to have no brakes. That's not the thing. Let's leave this to Lewis. But anyway, sorry, explain.
So obviously, the final couple of laps, he's fighting Kimi Antonelli for 5th. He then has this brake issue. That sees him drop back. He falls behind Leclerc, and then he's basically trying to stave off Fernando Alonso. I don't think it was the corner cutting and the leaving track limits was intentional to do that. I think he was just trying to get the car home in many ways, and he did by, I think it's 0.4 of a second over Fernando Alonso. However, this was noted by the stewards and then subsequently investigated after the race. And the stewards were basically looking into whether or not he left the track without a justifiable reason, and he did so multiple times. And so this is ultimately where the kind of stewards landed. They felt that he did do that, and we could see from the onboard footage and the replays that he did that. And they also felt that it basically wasn't a justifiable reason that he provided as to what happened. And then when they then applied the penalty of 5 seconds, which is the correct penalty under the stewards' guidelines, neither Lewis nor the team contested that. So they were perfectly happy. They accepted the decision by the FIA and the stewards. And that then was added to his race time at the end, and that dropped him behind Fernando Alonso. But we did also get the fury of Fernando on team radio over Lewis's handling of the situation. He was really, really aggrieved, really unimpressed by it. And an F-bomb laden rant is, I guess, the only way you can describe it.
Yeah.
We actually have a piece on the Racing News 365 website detailing the whole radio message from Fernando. So do check that out. But that is why Lewis was given the 5-second time penalty, which was added to his race time.
Yes, certainly not a child-friendly radio, but Fernando did get the position in the end with Lewis's penalty. Final question comes from Yvette. Why was Max Verstappen's Red Bull on Saturday so good and so bad on Sunday? I think so bad has been a bit harsh, because obviously Max Verstappen at a circuit Red Bull was notoriously not being great at in the current regulations. Qualified in second, was close to pole, just didn't quite have the pace did have the dirty air from Lando. We discussed that over the weekend, nothing to go into there. It meant he started the race in second, but crucially, it meant he started on the left-hand side of the grid, the dirty side of the grid, which saw pretty much most drivers who started on the left-hand side have a bad start just due to how low the grip levels were. Kimi Antonelli directly behind him had a bad start as well. To try and overcome this problem, Red Bull put Max on the soft tyres for the start of the race. He was the only driver in the top 7 to start on the soft. Everybody else was on the mediums. However, the grip levels were so bad, even that didn't help Max. Still didn't have a great start, managed to still keep second and effectively stayed there for the entirety of the race. Did fall a few seconds off George Russell. A lot of that was due to tyre degradation from what was, according to Red Bull, they put it an aggressive strategy. They had to go for it to try and get George at the first corner, because we quite often see in Singapore, with overtaking being so difficult, the driver that comes out of the first corner in the lead typically goes on to win the race. Obviously, Max also complained of downshift issues, upshift issues, balance issues, brake issues. He had a lot to deal with, Sam, but overall, the Red Bull, I don't think we can necessarily say it was bad. Yes, he had things to deal with, things he's dealt with several times this season, but he still managed to defend brilliantly from Lando Norris behind.
It was a sterling performance, really, wasn't it? Given the issues, the kind of plethora or myriad of problems that he was battling. Yeah, exactly. And he said it himself in his post-race comments that they had to gamble, partly because of the conditions and starting on the dirty side of the grid, that they felt they had to have the soft in order to mainly defend that position. But also, that was the only way, the only opportunity they have for getting past George. And they felt that that was the entire key to the race. You have to get the lead at the first corner. If you don't, you're in for a long evening. And that is ultimately what happened. And they knew that from that point onwards, because of that strategy, it was a case of managing those tyres, eking out that first stint to as long as you could possibly go. And he pitted before kind of lap 20, I think it was lap 17 or 18. And then from there, he was rightly points out that even from that point on the hard tyre, it's still an awful long way to go. So it wasn't necessarily that the Red Bull was bad, and it obviously did have its problems. It was more that it was a case of managing the tyres, seeing them through for the entire race, and also managing those issues. And whilst doing that, such as the capacity that Max Verstappen has in the car, he was still able to successfully defend from Lando Norris, who the top 3 really felt had the best race package underneath him in the MCL 39. So yeah, it was, not necessarily a bad Red Bull, just a variety of reasons as to why he wasn't able to fight for more.
Sam, amazing stuff. Thank you to everybody who sent in your questions. As always, for those watching this video, please be sure to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, so close to 25,000. Please do help us out with that, and comment below your thoughts on any of the questions we've answered, or just your thoughts in general from the Singapore Grand Prix. This has been Racing News 365, answers your fan questions. From myself and Sam, we'll see you later. Bye, guys.
Thanks for joining us, and take care.